So let me just get started over here. All right, there we go. So yeah, hi. Great meeting with the manager. Why don't you tell me about that? Let's get started.
Yeah, hi. Good to see you. Good to see you again. Yeah, so I think it was last week. I had a good one-on-one with my manager.
Yeah.
Um, Covered a bunch of stuff. It ended up being a lot longer than it was scheduled. Um, we because somebody else didn't show up for theirs, so we kind of like um put the two meetings together and just kind of like spent the whole time talking. But it was good catch up. We He kind of like reaffirmed uh the that like the way he's planning the team out and the way he's seeing the future of the company grow is having me be in the technical leadership position, um, and kind of like affirming that like he thinks I'm good at that and like I'm providing value in that direction. Um, so like he's gonna kind of the work has been shifting in that direction. And part of that, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but he recently released like levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, sorry, you're on the wrong part of my screen. Okay. So he released like a leveling system that's like official with like criteria and stuff within the company that we didn't have before.
Yeah. And by the way,
Original.
do you fit into the level that you are? Because now that there's criteria.
Yeah. So we originally there was no structure to the levels. The owner did not really care about titles, that kind of stuff. So like, I was brought in as a senior, but like nothing more specific than that.
Yeah.
Now there's senior one and two, and then staff after that, and then principal after that.
Yeah.
So, and there's also like five levels before senior,
Yeah.
because we do have a lot of more junior people. So we are not slotted into these levels yet. That will
Mm.
happen at the next, you know, evaluation period where we do like I forget what they're called, like salary adjustments and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is when?
Uh, I'd have to look it up, but I would say like on the order of months from now. You know, five, 4 or 5 months from now, maybe.
Okay. And do you know what happens? Suppose they said, wow, turns out you're, one level below CEO. Does that mean because your title was senior that you'd be getting a raise or something? Did they talk about?
Yeah, so he mentioned that he said so he wants staff level at our company to be equivalent in skill to staff level at larger tech companies,
Yeah.
and associated with that, he wants the total compensation to be not with like Fang level, but like uh higher than we are currently paying out. So if I got it slotted into one of the higher roles, there would be he kind of like alluded to a significant pay increase that he's been kind of like having to preload with leadership.
Okay. So that's promising because it's still at no point has it ever sounded like your manager didn't believe in you or didn't have your back. And
Sure.
every single time we've talked, and including this time, it sounds like he's rooting for you. Did he give you any? Well, okay, hints aside, he's published at least the criteria that you need for these levels, right? And when you read through it, where do you think you fall on that spectrum?
I would say I'm probably operating at senior two, but my work does seem to be shifting more towards staff level. I think um so he said like my the discussion that we will have will be kind of figuring out the difference between those two roles
Hmm.
because we haven't done this before. We need to establish the specifics and kind of like the criteria for each level is kind of vague. It's like a couple sentences
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
like a
yeah.
full list of responsibilities. So this first like evaluation period will be like where these roles get built out fully.
Okay. And so you mentioned that your role is shifting more toward technical leadership. What does that entail, and how is that different from what you're doing now?
Yeah, so kind of like what I was doing was like I would be like the I've been doing a lot of project leading,
Hmm.
like tech. He referenced myself and another developer as like the tech leads for projects. Um, I've been doing that. I think some of the juniors have been able, like, I've been kind of like helping scope out stuff, brought in at the beginning of projects to kind of plan stuff out, drive the direction, and then um, it's kind of like delegated off of me. So that's been shifting more in that direction. So the work that I've been doing recently has been like, a lot of documentation, a lot of the IC stuff has been more like critical path issues. So
Hmm.
like important things like security stuff and um, kind of like very visible parts of the application that need to work uh, well. The other thing has been, let's see, let's run on the other screen, of course.
Am I jumping ahead of us?
I wrote it. I think I wrote it in, yeah. So directional work. So like I'll get put on a discovery spike for something that will become um like to kind of like figure out the viability of a feature or like things like that. So like kind of like how my understanding is of like staff responsibilities would be
Hmm.
in a company at this scale is kind of like how my work has been shifting. So I think that's a good indication.
Yeah, I think it is too. I want to ask you a couple of things because to me, it sounds like this is all growth. And I think growth is good. I think it's good when it leads to a compensation change or a title change, assuming that it's more responsibility, which it isn't always. Growth does not
Mhm.
mean more responsibility. Do you like where this is going? Do you like the direction? Because we talked about the difference between IC and management for you. And you said you're kind of open either way a little bit, but do you like the IC stuff? And if you're getting your creative fulfillment met, then so yeah, how do you feel based on where you think this is going?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that he wants me to go in the technical leadership position. That's what I've expressed to him in the past. Um, I think I get the impression that he feels like my skill set would be wasted in a more people management role.
Hmm.
And like he would probably do an outside hire for that if that came up,
Yeah.
rather than somebody that he knows has like the kind of like the expertise or like the information, the context of the application, like so much in their mind.
Yeah. But you like that? You like the idea of continuing to do technical leadership?
Yeah, I mean, it aligns with my goals. I was kind of like, I don't know, I was curious about the management, the other stuff. And that might be, I would be leading, I would be managing projects more than people,
Hmm.
but, people kind of as a consequence of that, in terms of just like work allocation. But I think that, yeah, I mean, it was a curiosity, but I don't think I feel negative feelings about, um, going in the direction that I had originally planned anyway.
Okay. Yeah. This is it's very interesting to see this because I feel like this is the real world, but the time scale of these things is usually a little bit longer. And so to see this play out and mentoring session number 4 is
I,
is nice, right? Because you said, "Hey, I want to get to principal level," and now you're like, "Hey, I might be principal level in a few months." So I like that it's along the lines of what you wanted to do. What are the surprises that you've had so far in doing this stuff? Because originally we were talking about sprint tasks and how you were really focused on that. And I want to talk about that eventually. But what things have come up that you didn't expect, that you like, that you dislike?
um, I guess I have less of a focus on sprint tasks, which is nice. I like the freedom to kind of like he kind of it comes with a level of trust that he understands that like I'm not going to be wasting time. Um, and so if I go down a path and I see a problem and I like, flesh something out as a ticket or something, like he understands that that is a useful use of time. And so I'm not, it's nice for my uh, personality type
Hmm.
because I become obsessed with metrics, I think, if metrics are aligned with me. And
Yeah.
so, like, abstracting myself away from the metrics, I think will be good for me overall.
Okay. But So I think that is a good surprise. Have there been any bad surprises? I don't want to necessarily focus on the bad, but it gives me a better idea of how you're engaging with this change.
Um, I mean, I think overall the amount of like features I've delivered has been lower,
Hmm.
um, which would have bothered me previously.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've adjusted to that, so it's not as problematic to me.
Okay. So in general, I would sum this up as you're taking the change well. It sounds like you're excited about what's coming up. How would you feel if months from now they said, you know what, turns out senior two is the best fit? I don't know if that equates to a salary change or anything, but would you be bummed? Would you say that's fine? We have a path at least toward principal.
Yeah, I don't yeah, I don't my happiness will not be pinned on getting allocated to staff level at that time. It seems like that's the direction things are going, but um it also like moves my goal up faster than I was planning anyway.
Yeah.
Um so it's kind of like I don't know if that makes sense, but like it was too like not too easy, but like I didn't put the amount of work that I needed to get there was not what I had kind of like accounted for or planned for.
I see. So you're saying that the corporate grind is too easy for you, and you're way better than no. I get it, and I think that's a good way of looking at things because that means you wouldn't be crushed or anything if this didn't happen, and
Yeah.
that would be a bad situation to be in, of course. And who knows, maybe it gives clarity or something. But um, let's say you get to principal. How does that change your goals? What do you think your new normal looks like? Like what reality do you live in, assuming that, yeah, a few months from now, I don't know, it's July and they say, yep, you are principal, significant compensation increase.
Oh well, so it'd be staff.
Or
Principal is
sorry,
like another
sorry, yeah,
level
yeah, yeah.
ahead.
I jumped a level, but I meant staff this whole time. Yeah.
Um, sorry, can you
Oh yeah.
summarize
So
the
so
question
sorry.
again?
So let's say it's a few months from now and you get to
Mhm.
staff. Does this shift your goals? Are you just going to live in the world where you're staff and you say, I just want to just make this work, focus on family now, and kind of scale back on career ambitions? Do you want to then make it to principal, the next level after staff? Where do you want to go after that?
Yeah, I haven't put much thought into it, honestly. I think I wouldn't like immediately start working towards principal. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like I would want to be the idea with like the scale of company in my eyes is that you know if I'm staff level at an early stage company and then it grows up to be a big company, then like that staff level role is like worth more than it is now. Like I've been a senior at a tiny company when I only had 5 years of experience and I, wouldn't qualify as senior anywhere else because they just like default made me a senior. So
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I'm leery, like I'm very sensitive to that uh, kind of like affecting my career growth and stuff. So I would definitely want to lean into being a really performance staff engineer and kind of focusing more on business goals than personal goals. If that were to happen, to grow the
Okay.
business to the point where like, you know, the staff level is the level it should be at.
Yeah. I think it's a good sign that these levels are happening now. I feel like most companies start off and it's the wild west of just getting a software product out there and then getting customers and then making sure you can even pay people because for some
Hmm.
startups that is a problem. And then you get to this point where you're growing, you have more engineers, you have a good variety of junior and senior. And now they're like, well, why did that person get promoted and I didn't? And you need to start standardizing on some things. I think this is good process to have for a company. And it's an indication to me that they're going to continue focusing in that direction of, this is probably the wrong word, but legitimizing themselves as a tech company. And
Hmm.
so I agree with what you're saying there. Also, I think almost at any point in your life, if the equation makes sense for you, how much time you're putting in, how much stuff you're getting out of it, then it really doesn't matter about title or compensation or anything because you're happy with where you are. So
Sure.
I think that's good. We had talked about, the hedging your bets, getting interview skills in the past. So if you got to staff, does that now become a background focus at all? Or are you dropping it completely? Where do you stand with
I
that?
would I would still want to I would go after staff level roles
Hmm.
in that case. Like I would do the same thing. Like I would still want to be practice interviewing, but for staff level roles rather than senior roles, and then that have the ability to go in staff roles. Because like right now, I think if I were to level myself
Hmm.
in a tech company, it would be on the senior side, but with possibility of going into staff.
Yeah.
Um, so it would kind of just like bump that up a level in terms of what I would be testing myself against.
Okay. And how much of a drive would that be for you to go and seek out staff level roles? I mean, would you wait 6 months into your new position? Would you start looking pretty soon?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it kind of it depends a little bit on what the salary adjustment would be. Like if it's like a significant thing, then I probably wouldn't need to look for a while. Depends on the climate when that happens and everything. Like right now, it's kind of like seems like all the hatches are kind of buckled down. So like
Yeah.
you have to be very conservative with job hopping. Um, so depending on the climate, I I I know for a fact that the company has 3 years of runway at any given time.
Yeah.
We were close to break even for a little bit. I think we're just under now. Um, but we have 3 years of runway in the bank. So I'm not concerned about, you know, a layoff situation happening, and it is a safe position right now.
Okay. Uh, I do have to pry into that just a little bit more based on what you said. You said it was about break even. Now we're a little under that, and they're planning on giving compensation increases to employees. Those things combined do not make me feel as confident about the 3 years. Do you know something
Yeah.
that you didn't share, or is that?
I don't know if the 3 year runway will be maintained with the salary changes.
Yeah.
Um, that's like math I'm not privy to yet, but I think um, like it might turn into a 2 year runway if that's the case or something.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I I just like I have peers that are in companies where it's like we have 6 months runway,
Yep. Yep.
so
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like
Yep.
it
Yep.
feels a lot more safe than that for the startup scene.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that when you fear that your job will go away, there's almost no way you could be a good worker at that job. It usually means that the company is probably doing poorly if people have that
Yeah.
fear in them. Yeah. Okay, so let me process this for a second. Sounds like you're potentially going to become staff this year, but if not, it could happen the next year or something. And at least
Mhm.
you're on the trajectory to getting there. Your manager's on board. You are taking more of a leadership role. You're doing less of the IC things unless they're very important IC things. I mean, these are all signs to me that are steering more toward principal, or sorry, staff. I keep saying that. Because my next question was going to be out of curiosity, what if they're like, you know what, you're actually beyond staff? Would that surprise you? Would you be like, oh, I'm definitely staying here?
I think that would concern me more than
Okay. Yeah.
you know than please me.
Yeah. And do you know the description differences between staff and principal? Like what is the expectation difference?
I can pull it up real quick. Let me see. Mm, Okay. Yeah. So we have. Okay. So we do have another one in between. So there's senior, senior two, staff, senior staff, and principal on the thing, and there are like it's very terse
Hmm.
responsibility summary.
Okay.
Um,
That's fine. We don't necessarily need to dig into that. Um, what I was going to mention
Actually,
is what?
there's more. There is more. I scrolled down and I saw more breakdown that I
Oh,
forgot about.
there is. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess how about as long as you have it open,
Mhm.
if you just look at it and then kind of think of your own resume or something on paper, do you feel like you fit staff already? I know we kind of talked about this, but that was when you thought there were more terse than they were.
Yeah, I think responsibilities wise, I align with it. They do have like rough timeline for experience.
Yeah.
And it's 12 to 15 for staff. Um, I think I'm on the lower end of that. I think I have 12 or 13 um years. Um, so I think I would fit like I could fit into senior two or staff depending on like how my work is allocated, I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, 12 to 13. And by the time you have this review, it'll be 12 and a half to 13 and a half or something
Hmm.
like that. And that's like
Yeah.
pretty much in the middle of that range. Um, Part of the reason I brought this up is the concept of terminal levels. And I don't think this is a massive discussion we need to have, but some companies say, you can't stay at your entry level position. We just don't support that. You need to grow and you need to, and no company will ever probably say, oh, staff is not a terminal level. Like you should be able to stay at staff the rest of your career. So I don't think there's any push to need to go to principal or anything. And that would be probably many years away. So I think it sounds like things are going well there. How do you feel when it comes to sprint tasks? Because like you said, you had to grapple with it originally and you said you don't think it's much of a problem. Is there any other anxiety coming from that?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, time management is kind of tricky now because it's like my responsibilities are a little more vague.
Yeah.
So I'm more in charge of my time. So like that's kind of becoming more of a thing, but I think I've I think I've got strategies for it just because I've been um, you know, diagnosed ADHD for a while and before that, you know, 25 years of undiagnosed ADHD trying to, figure out how to get stuff done. So I've kind of got time management strategies
Okay.
baked in.
No, that's good. I want to make sure that some of these things that we talk about don't continue to sort of plague you throughout the time that we're chatting, because otherwise I feel like
Sure.
we're not focusing on the right stuff. So, and I know you have other stuff written down and I'm kind of free forming it right now, but where would you say your focus is? Like, what are the problems you feel you're solving? Where do you feel you need help?
Uh, Help from our conversations.
No, well, okay, that too, actually. So, how about, yeah, let's start with that. But I was thinking it at work, but yeah, either one is fine.
I mean, so like at work, I I need to maybe understand more product things. Like if I'm going to have an impact on um future work,
Hmm.
I kind of have to have more understanding of like the roadmap, I guess, like why things are in the order they are. So there may be a point where like I ask to be put into the product meetings,
Yeah.
because like I'm on the front end side, the client side, and a lot of the decisions are made in the design room, essentially.
So this is something that's kind of interesting because I feel like as you grow in seniority, usually there's an increase in number of meetings. And so then it becomes, how do I sort of cut back or only make sure I have valuable ones? This sort of thing is good to get insight into, even if that insight is just, oh yeah, I don't need to know this. I can trust that product is doing what they're doing, or I can read the output of that meeting and still do well at my job. So how many people are typically involved in this? You said product and design, and I don't know, is there a business unit involved? So yeah, how many people are involved? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so we have EPD, so it's like engineering, product, and design are like under one leader,
Hmm.
and that's my manager. Product and design meet separately with my manager,
Yeah.
and I see that meeting going on because we do it in Slack huddles. So it's I think it's 4 or 5 people. In the case, the fifth person would be like the CEO,
Okay.
who's also a computer science person,
Got it.
so has influence.
So 4 to 5 people is not so vast that there are these splinter conversations happening out of this with, 7 people over there and 12 people over there and no one can come to agreement. Would they be okay with you joining in, do you think?
Um, I think it wouldn't be a problem for everyone except for my manager might be sensitive to adding me to unnecessary meetings if
Yeah.
unless that was deemed necessary.
Yeah, I see. All right. And um, so now let's pursue this from the other angle. Suppose you don't have insight exactly into how this roadmap is formed and why things are coming about. How do you think that impacts your ability to do your job?
Um, I don't know how to like I can drive direction from the angle of debt, but I can't drive direction from the angle of feature.
Okay.
If I'm not privy to like how features are like conceived and and positioned.
Yeah. So, okay, in my experience, I've generally found that the more you know about product direction, the better, because decisions start as chatter, and that chatter can go in any direction at that point. And it could be something like, hey, we're thinking of cutting this feature. And that's not something you want to share widely because you don't want to scare people or get them to stop doing work. But if that's what starts, and then you start hearing more murmurs about that, and then finally the feature gets cut, and you're like, well, this was out of the blue. So those are the things I think being privy to could help. And that can go in the opposite direction too. Hey, this feature really caught on, and I think we need to start reallocating resources to it. And I've been on the receiving end of this from a more leaf node of a company where they just say, this project is now all we're doing. A pivot to this. We don't care about anything else. And all of a sudden it's like teams are scrambling to figure out, well, how are we ditching this other thing? How are we getting So I do think it's probably important. And I think the sooner you can probably start, the better. And maybe it's something where you're just listening in, you don't have to fully pay attention. But I think that would be a good thing to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say to strongly pay attention to, is it providing value for you? And recognize that there's some minimum time you probably need to wait before you can even tell, maybe 3 or 4 meetings or something. So yeah, I would say to look into that. If
Uh,
you if you were to talk to your manager, tomorrow and say, "Hey, I think I should join these meetings," do you think he'd say this may not be a necessary use of your time? Do you think there'd be pushback?
um, I think I could explain why I think it would be necessary, and he could, like, I think his default reaction would be like, I don't want to bog you down. You have enough stuff to work on, that kind of stuff. But I think I could speak to why it would be helpful for me if if the direction of my role is moving in this direction
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, and I think it would be. I also think that this is, it would be. It sounds like you have a small enough company. Does the CEO know you by name? Have we talked about this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But imagine if it were a bigger company and the CEO, I mean, they can't know every employee. So at some point, you got to sort of put your name on the map. I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, I think it'd be hard to be a staff or principal level engineer, or I guess you said senior staff is there too, and not be in some of those meetings and intersect with that. So I think that would be good. I think that would help you. I think that would also probably give you some more confidence that what you're doing aligns with what everyone else is envisioning. And who knows what that'll change into. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you really like those meetings. Maybe you do go more business oriented or something. And maybe that would help you as a staff level engineer. Okay, so I have deviated pretty drastically from what I think you want to talk about. So let's get
Oh,
back on.
I just added notes of like updates from what we talked about and that kind of stuff. So we don't have to stick too strictly to what I had written.
Okay. Let's go back for a second to where do you feel you need help? So we talked about this.
Yeah.
This is a thing you could use help for at work. Is there anything else where you feel like I'm not totally confident what I'm doing at work?
I guess if I don't right now I don't know where I fit with the structure of things because the structure is not solid, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know what's my exact responsibility, and I kind of just assert where I can be helpful. So I don't know if, yeah, there's not like strict criteria of like what I should be doing right now, and I just kind of like try to provide value in the ways that I seem to get feedback are good for my manager in meetings.
Yeah.
Uh,
But and if there isn't that structure, it means that you could pursue it in the order you want or how you want. I think the risk that you could run there is the same risk people run as hobbyist developers, where they do things that are fun rather than what's necessary. And
sure.
so you might be doing things where you can provide value, but that aren't high impact or of the right urgency or importance. So do you feel like there's a good mix of that? Like you can provide value and also you're looking at, yes, this is important.
Yeah, because we do enough check-ins to like prioritize work that I think I get an idea of like what's super important, and then I have like uh some leeway
Yeah.
where I can kind of like work with.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just say it doesn't sound like a concern. And I think it's reasonable from everything you said. I also suspect that your manager would tell you, hey, you went and pursued this, whatever, I don't know, you fixed a small bug that you didn't have to do. Hey, you really should consider delegating that. I don't have a reason to believe your manager wouldn't give you that feedback. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah. So you have guardrails. This is like bumper bowling. You can't you can't throw a gutter
Yeah, sure.
ball if there is no gutter. So I think your concern about being in tune with the roadmap is valid. I think you can join those meetings. And then I think that's probably all you would have to do. I don't think it'd have to be much more than that. And hopefully that's not a big time investment. Is there anything else? Basically, what I'm gauging from all of this is you seem to be set up very well. Like you can deliver, you have confidence in your skills, your manager has confidence in your skills. There is a clear path for growth. And that path is not so far in the future that you won't just find out by whatever, 6 months from now or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like if that's the case, and like I'm kind of like on a track that seems to be going in the right direction, like is there not like what lever do I pull to like improve myself, I guess. I don't really know like I've always had side projects going to like learn some other skill sets so that I
Hmm.
could get a better job, that kind of stuff. But like if I'm in the place where I need to be, um I'm confused. You
Okay.
know what I mean?
So,
Like I don't know what to
yeah, yeah,
do.
yeah. I have a bunch of thoughts about this. So, you are being forged by the fires of experience right now. And you almost don't want to detract from that because if you are set up for success and you are essentially slowly achieving that success, then doing something extra or different could be a deviation from that success. And it doesn't have to be, right? If you were like, hey, I have a clear technical concern, I don't know C++ pointers, I'm just making something up, right? Then I'd be like,
I
yeah, go
don't.
read a textbook or something.
Yeah.
And then you have solved a clear problem that you've identified. In this case, I think you are still learning. Like you feel like you're improving on the job as you're doing this, right? But you're not
Mhm.
explicitly tackling these problems to learn or grow. It's just the responsibilities you're being given. And that's, like I said, that's the fires of experience right there. So if you can identify a gap and you feel like you have the time, then I think we should talk about it. But otherwise, I think it's like just do a good job,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
and you will naturally progress, and that way you won't spread yourself too thin, which is a very real risk, especially with what we talked about last time with the lack of sleep. By the way, has that gotten better?
Um, the super problematic time has passed. When we're getting ready to do sleep training with my youngest, so that will, if she can get on a schedule like my other one did,
Hmm.
then it's like a whole new world of, you know, 5 hours in the evening to do what I need to do instead of, uh, you know, almost no no time.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I hope that goes well. And I think even with that going on, you've still positioned yourself well at your job. So this is again why I say, like, look, you could go make an app in your free time or something. And what would that do for you? Take away time from your family, take away time from your sleep, whatever else right now. And if you find yourself with that
Sure.
time and you want to do that, by all means. yeah, probably just keeping your nose to the grindstone at work. Does that sound liberating? Because to some extent, it would be like, wow, I am on the path that I need to be on.
Yeah, it's like an adjustment. Like I've been in such like a famine culture
Mhm.
for career stuff for so long that like that in itself is an adjustment for my mental positioning.
Yeah, and I mean, it's entirely possible I'm giving you, bad advice here and then with any of this stuff, and you should be doing the opposite. I think based on, like I said, all of the indicators are pointing to you're on the right track. And you talked to your manager already. You in fact got, double the time you should have had because of the cancellation of the one-on-one schedule. At some point, and this is what happens in a lot of bigger companies, because the criteria is listed out for how you get leveled a certain way, people start asking, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And sometimes managers give lip service and say, oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Then promotion time comes around and you're not promoted. And they say, well, look, I've been checking in all the time.
Mhm.
Making sure you're almost in lockstep with your manager and with that career ladder, I think is a good thing to do. And yeah, I don't have reason to believe your manager is ever just giving you lip service. It sounds like he just truly appreciates your input and your work you've done on the team. So yeah, the famine is maybe over. I don't know, or at least for now.
Sure.
And yeah, if your company has enough of a runway and it looks like, yeah, I don't know, everything's on the up and up, then it sounds like you're on track. Um,
Part of that came from I so early in my career I feel like I wasted a bunch of time. I
mhm,
like stayed at the same place for way too long. I think I've mentioned before, I had like 5 years of the same year of experience. And so, like, I got senior title at that job, but I learned nothing past the first year, essentially. Um, and so, and also, like, it paid horribly. So, I really stunted my career growth. Like, after college, like, I could have gotten an internship somewhere and, been in like a totally different place.
mhm.
And like I feel like I'm just now catching up to where like I should be in my career um at the time that I'm at.
Look,
So that's the adjustment period.
I get
That's
it.
like
I
the
get it.
adjustment.
But I think this is dangerous thinking because saying that you've stunted your growth and that you're catching up are completely arbitrary, right? Like
Yeah.
feeling like you're behind somebody else, that's not sort of how life works, right? You lived your life in a certain way, and if you did, let's say, learn more at those 4 years or switched or got an internship, what else would have been different in your life? And I have seen people, I'm not gonna, I can't list any personal details, right? But I've seen people go full throttle on career, and I've seen people go full throttle on family, and I've seen both be like, I should have done the other thing.
Mhm.
And that's got to say something about how the grass is always greener. And everyone has a different mix of what they want for those things, but I feel like you are you have a good mix of both right now. And so who cares about what got you there as long as you're happy with where you are now. So
Yeah.
are you generally happy with your career standing now? Again, if you ignore the whole like, well, here's where I might have been eventually, like if you just looked at your standing in a vacuum, are you like, yes, this is good?
Yeah, I'm positioned really well for where I live, cost of living, that kind of stuff. Um, I feel like I have growth potential in front of me, and more if the company does really well. Um, I have a lot of flexibility because, like, I have a family, so
Mm-hmm.
having being remote and having the flexibility I have to work on it, it's allowed me to like be part of my. I don't just come home at 5 p.m. I'm kind of just like around all the time, so I'm part of that. So I think in general, I'm like at the place where I would want to get to if I thought about the beginning of my career.
Yeah.
Like this is like a place I'd want to get to. I
Yeah.
just I'd like it's almost like I worked really, really hard the last few years
Yeah.
to catch up to get to this spot.
Yeah, but and this is kind of why I say it almost doesn't matter what had happened. I feel like you've seen my tenant system and how I slowly steer myself every week. When that doesn't work or someone doesn't have that, then they sharply steer themselves. And that's what you did. And you are where you are now. And hopefully you don't feel like you regret even the course correction you had to do to get here, or that you overly worked or something like that, or you feel
Yeah.
burned out. So yeah, I think things are looking good on that front. There was one other thing I wanted to add with this. Let's see. No, I think that's it. Yeah. Well, okay. It's good then. Yeah, I think you're in a healthy state. So now let's go to the question that you'd originally interpreted this as, which is, how can I help you, do you think?
I mean, if I'm, it's really nice to have these conversations, especially like what we had just talked about with the, getting into the more of the product role, or not role, but like more of the product context. Um, just having somebody to speak about career stuff that doesn't work in my job
Yeah.
is like I have friends in the software industry that don't work in my job, but they are, one's a freelancer, a couple of them work at smaller companies and stuff. So nobody that's on my level at a tech company that is dealing with the same stuff or has the experience with like managerial structures and stuff like that. So like just having like a person to bounce these topics off of has been super helpful for me.
Yeah, and by the way, even if you'd said, I don't know, but it feels like it's been good, that's also totally fine. I feel like mentees don't ever need to know exactly what it is that could benefit them the most. And I agree. I think it is helpful to talk about this stuff and hear the inputs from someone who is not so close or so attached to the job, or is like, hey, I'm worried I'm going to hurt your feelings or something like that. Like, the mentor-mentee relationship at this point. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I keep, there's like something at the tip of my tongue and I can't pinpoint what it is. It's when you talked about your friends being in these roles too, and I don't know. Anyway, it'll probably strike me toward the end then. Okay, yeah. So let me make sure that we've talked about some of the other things that we have here. So you said go to for quality, review time, slot into this stuff. I know we've talked about these things already. Significant TC adjustments. Yep. Co-working sessions. Oh yeah. So co-working sessions. Why don't you tell me about those?
Yeah, so we like recently onboarded like a another senior backend person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they like joined the co-working sessions and it was kind of like the personality type is very um Russian, if that makes sense. Like they're kind of like I know a lot of Russians for some reason, but the kind of like very serious.
Yeah.
Um, so it's been really helpful for people that you don't have a lot of meetings with to be able to have a very casual setting to talk about, like TV and stuff like that. So um, I think they've been helpful for more than myself. Like the team in general, I think has been getting value out of it.
Yeah. How do you run them? Do you do something like a shared Pomodoro? Is it just talk when you want to talk?
It's just kind of like everybody. The idea is like you go into a Slack huddle and you unmute and you work.
Yeah.
So people just kind of like have tertiary conversations while they're taking care of stuff.
And but everyone can hear those conversations, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so you essentially mute them if you feel like you don't want to hear them, and people just manage that themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. People manage their own mutings, I guess. The reason I ask is because sometimes there could be a tendency for those to devolve into purely conversational, and like two people are talking the entire time or something. It sounds like you haven't had that issue. And honestly, even if you did, it's still providing value. Do you feel like you've got a stronger connection with people, not on a work level, on a personal level, from having these meetings, the co-working sessions?
Yeah, I mean, there's people, especially the people on other teams, like that I would have almost no interaction with, that like I have a good idea of, their personality, the stuff that we kind of like coalesce on, um, that kind of stuff where like we have like a camaraderie where we wouldn't have no other opportunity to get that.
That's really good. And especially in the context of missing the annual meeting, I know you're really bummed about that. Do you feel like things settled in a way that you're happy with here? Because being able to meet these people and talk to them and everything, I know it would have been nice to do in person, but this is the next best thing in my
Yeah,
mind. Yeah.
that's what it feels like. It feels like the as it's a good balance between like socializing too much, and like not socializing at all.
Yeah.
And because I've been at a company where like Slack was very used.
Hmm.
My last company, Slack was like extremely chatty. People were like spent all day in Slack, and I, had relationships with people in the support department and like all these kind of other parts of the company. Um, but it felt like too much time was being put in Slack,
Yeah.
and so like this company seems to strike a better balance, um, with the addition of this co-working session.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is good, especially for the remote culture. Was the last company remote focused as well?
Yeah, that was my first company that was fully remote
Yeah.
for. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I wrote in my own questions for you, do you feel like you're becoming friends with people? And I don't think that's important for everybody, but given what you'd said and your desire to go to this annual meeting, do you feel like you've made friends out of these people?
yeah, yeah. Like I think, um, like we ended up making a personal, or like a kind of like a Discord
Yeah.
offshoot from the Slack channel. So like we are trying to sync up for like game nights and stuff like that. So it seems like there's like a friendship culture emerging out of it, and it's even cross team. So it's like people that play games, even outside of the engineering department.
Yeah. 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 I think it's really good. I feel like, this is where I really want to give the caveat to anyone eventually watching this that this is not advice for everybody and always become friends with your coworkers or something. And there are certainly reasons not to. But I think in remote companies, especially, it's it's this cold, almost machine-like environment a lot of times if you don't do any of that and you don't talk to your coworkers and you don't have a very strong reason not to. And I've met people who are like, I want to work 9 to 5. And I was just talking to someone who said, I don't even accept coffee breaks. This is an in-person job. I don't even go on a coffee break with someone. I'm like, I don't want to give off the wrong impression. Nose down, that's it. And that works for them. They're happy with their life. They don't feel like anything's missing. So great. But yeah, for
Yeah.
other people, I think, you need those touch points or else just it feels like, why am I doing this or why am I here?
I worked like that, and it felt crushing to me because it was just like I'm just a ticket closer machine.
Yep. Yeah,
That
and
I
there's
could be an AI.
yeah, exactly. And there's only so much of that you can do before you start to lose an identity with that. Which, by the way, oh, that's the thing. Oh my God, I finally remembered. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel that your company plays into your identity as a person? So, as an example, to give you some context for this, I might say something like, I play music and not I'm a musician. So that's like my identity as a person when it comes to music because I don't do it so much that I consider myself good at it. Is this company like I am proud to be an employee there? I am integrated into the fabric of the culture. How do you feel when you think about your identity in terms of the company?
It's a good question. Like the there are potentials in the product that I think would make us into a company that I would like be very proud to show. I
Hmm.
think right now we're in a position where it's like the way that I have to explain to people what kind of company I work for is very complicated, and
Hmm.
it's hard to relate to everybody. Like you have
Yeah.
to explain like a whole new category of things. So it's not like, I work for Uber and everybody knows what Uber is. Um, that's something that I'm like motivated if I continue on my trajectory. Like I want to make the company into something like that where like it's a category essentially. Um, I have often recommended my workplace
Yeah.
to other people. So I think like the company, like the people in the company, um, separate from like what the product is,
Hmm.
are extremely solid,
Yeah.
especially the
Yeah.
engineering department. I think sales has, I wouldn't recommend it for sales because it's kind of cutthroat, SaaS sales. But engineers, I've tried to like position my friends to get hired because like I think it's a rare mixture of, a very like this the CEO and my manager were both are both engineers,
Hmm.
and so there's like it's like an engineering driven SaaS company. Like the it's not we don't have um like a deadline culture or anything like that. So it's like it's a great place to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you feel like you're part of this and you'd like to be kind of even more of an impact there, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch the interview I did with my friend Steve?
Oh, you know what? I started watching it. I didn't have a chance to finish it.
Okay, that's totally fine. He had mentioned this sentiment of, I want to do well at my company. And in order for me, like, he wants the company to want to do well enough where his work that he does is like commensurate to that almost. So he wants there to be a rocket ship that he can also be a rocket ship and like help fuel this thing. And I like that concept. I feel like if you're like the star player on your team or at your company and the company doesn't really care and they're making, kind of middling sales or something, you're like, well, my work isn't paying off. And the other way around, where you feel like you're maybe bringing people down and the company's doing amazingly, you feel like, well, I'm not really part of this. And so there's some perfect middle ground there where, yeah, both are kind of going. So I think it would
Yeah.
be cool if you get to do that. I think as you grow in seniority and as the company gets more resources and everything, yeah, hopefully you can carve that out. All right, I want to move on to this one because you mentioned earlier, like, what should I do, to like, how should I fill any gaps? And so, yeah, side project, how's that going?
Um, yeah. So I really don't get very much time to work on it. Like I probably could put more time into it,
Hmm.
but I'm kind of balancing working the amount that I need to for work and then like mental health video game breaks essentially like
Yeah.
uh I I don't feel highly motivated to put 100% of my free time into it um because it's not even like it's a tertiary skill. It's like a
Yeah.
mobile app is not something I'm not on the mobile team. I thought it would be fun to work on it. I've had it as a goal for a while to like, build something and have it on my phone and use it. So I still think it would be fun to do, but it's just like it's a low priority.
Yeah.
Um,
I had suggested this to Peter in our conversations that there are certain things to just kind of drop when they're no longer serving you or when you're too torn between other things. And to be honest, this sounds like one of those things that maybe just wipe it from the radar. And if you feel like coming back to it in the future, cool.
yeah,
You mentioned you're a little bit stuck with configuration dependencies right now. That's just not fun, right? Nobody's like,
yeah,
I
it
want to
really
solve
is.
dependencies today, right? They
Yeah.
want to like get
Yes, Lynn.
moving. Yeah. So, and unfortunately, it's like, well, the longer that passes, the less context you're going to have on how to even fix this or what you've tried. And like you said, tertiary skill, you're already positioned well at work. You are now playing video games with these people you started a Discord group with. I would just say maybe see how it feels to just say, you know what, for the next month I'm not going to do anything. And then if after a month you're like, I miss it, then cool, go back to it. And if not,
Sure.
yeah. Uh, um, I'm gonna just write my conclusion down there for. Oh, was I gonna say anything else for that? Oh yeah. Also, you probably learned something even while doing what you did in that time, right?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've never ran simulators before. I've never kind of like, uh, you know, I learned about the structure of React Native projects and kind of like the differences between React and React Native and things like that. So like I've gotten value out of what I've done so far. It's just I haven't been able to work on the idea that I wanted to get to. And
Yeah.
which is kind of like it feels like a failure in the I don't know, it's like the library I'm using or something like I was using uh what's it called? Like the React Tailwind uh library, but it essentially is like it's supposed to be a starter kit, but there's like all these issues with you know the stable release essentially. So
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to separate a failure of tools and a personal failure. Do you feel at all like you dropped the ball here somehow?
I didn't attach any I don't attach any feelings of failure to it because I didn't really have the expectation of finishing it. Essentially, like it was with the side projects. Um, I don't hold myself to finishing them because I think the act of working on them is the goal. Um, and I've never had a side project that like I've monetized or anything like
Yeah.
that, so
Yeah.
it's just not my focus.
Okay, that's good. That's healthy. And I've heard people say in the past things like, "I'm going to get this done," and then life changes, and for whatever reason, they can't get it done, and they're like, "Well, I failed at that." And I'm like, "Did you? Your requirements change. This is like a natural part of life, but also even software. It's like make feature A. Oh wait, customers don't want it anymore. Stop making feature A. It's not
Yeah.
make it anyway just because you said you would." So, all right, that's good. Yeah. How do you feel about the concept of? And you don't need to commit to this, but are you okay with the concept of like, you know what? Yes, I'll just push this off for now. I don't need to work on this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost rather pick it back up again when like the thing I wanted to use is stable so that I can
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
the idea I wanted to work on.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, especially in the web world. It's always tough even figuring out what are people using nowadays if I want to use the best of the best. And unfortunately, a lot of times the best of the best is riddled with rough edges.
Yeah.
So sure, it might be the best thing for the people who know how to use it. And then, yeah. Okay, I want to look through my questions really quickly and see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, this part because I have not gotten to do my new spiel with you about this. First of all, did you eat Thai food? Did you did you end up celebrating?
I guess not explicitly a celebration, but we have eaten Thai food since then.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think I talked to you about this, but I'd originally said, hey, I think we all need to celebrate our accomplishments more. And then what I realized is it's not just the okay, hey, I went out and bought a cake and ate it or something like that. It's acknowledging what you did that was good that got you here. And so without needing a celebration, I want to run through a mini retrospective with you right now that is solely focused on what hard work have you put in to get here. I want you to be able to pat yourself on the back and really recognize that you have grown, that you are learning, that you are doing valuable things. So please, you have the floor. Pat yourself on the back.
Reflect.
Yeah.
Um, I think, the last few years, I think I've worked really hard to get into a position uh, that I feel like I'm in now, where I don't feel behind. I feel there's there's a path in front of me. Um, I feel like I'm doing a good job providing for my family and kind of like sharing the mental overhead um, required. Like I don't feel burnt out right now,
Yep.
which is like I think an achievement for me because I was for a while, I had stuff going on, like my whole thing with my mother passing away, kind of just like put weight on everything else and felt like just pushed me towards burnout faster because it was just like I have less resources to allocate but the same demand for resources. Now that I feel like you know, I it's not so intense.
Hmm.
I think I feel very comfortable with my position and my allocation of resources. Um, and I don't feel the need I don't feel like I'm behind, so I don't, which is means that I've kind of caught up to where like my mental position was,
Yeah.
um, which is big for me.
It's huge, and this is why I say I think we should do a mini retrospective on this because otherwise, I feel like what happens is we're just like, oh well, I did something, and then yeah, I got a positive result, but I didn't really associate that with me doing the something, and so then I just move on. And what's the next big thing, and how can I do this? And it's like, look, you've got some breathing room right now. Soon you'll have even more when you get better sleep, I hope.
Sure,
and
yeah.
and you were beset by various issues over the years, like you said, even starting with ADHD to your mother's passing to missing the annual company meeting a couple of years in a row to dealing with where's my validation coming from at work, my role is changing, how do I go from being an IC into this tech lead position, and So a lot has happened, and if you just think about that number of months since, whenever this what whoops, I dragged the wrong window. I'm trying to scroll in the document to see when our very first meeting was. It was December 18th. Yeah. So even thinking of December 18th till now, not even 4 months, and things are already pretty different from the kinds of things you were talking about back then. So yeah, acknowledge that, and then the next time you eat Thai food, think of this conversation. Then that'll close the loop. So any closing thoughts? Because we're kind of wrapping up on time here.
No, I mean, I like it's always good to catch up, and it's nice to frame it like this because um if you're just heads down all the time and you don't discuss your career with anybody, it's really easy to just keep thinking of short-term goals and not expand your scope of like evaluation outside of that. So like I appreciate you, as an exercise taking me through that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I look forward to hearing how this stuff goes. I really, you know, I've been saying, hey, let's do 6 to 9 sessions or something. What I'd like you to do at some point is figure out when the evaluations are going to happen this year, because it would be nice to sort of like, I don't know when it is. If it's in December or something, we need to just probably do a follow-up session or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'll be cool to see that because it'll be sort of full circle from what we talked about originally. But yeah, thank you for your time. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah. All
Adam.
right, take care. Bye. All right, you know the drill, Chad. Everybody clap for Kyle. Except for I should be showing Chad on screen before I start clapping.